rifling through those long boxes.
It's gotta be here, it's gotta be here, it's gotta be here. Aha! Here it is!
And bagging those books.
I'm out of bags and boards again?
Welcome to your home for Star Wars comics.
The Cosmic Force Podcast,
A Youtini Podcast Network production. And now, here are your hosts, Parker Kirk, Caleb Lamanek, and Jacob Bosch.
Hello there, guys, and welcome back to the Cosmic Force Podcast, episode 68. Today, we're going to be talking about Yoda, issues 7 through 9. Now, those of you who are members of our Patreon community, they're probably going to be privy to a Yoda issues 1 through 3 episode here not too long from now. Hopefully, we can get that out to you. But as always, I am joined by my co-hosts, Caleb and Jacob. Now, again, I just want to bring up that some of you may not recognize me. We dropped an episode before. You had an episode to adjust, but that's not very long. So my name is Parker. I will be joining you from the Youtini YouTube channel. Thanks again for joining us, everybody. And Caleb, how you been doing, man?
Doing great. And Parker, you got to mention your bomb ass time with the TikTok. You're blowing it up there. Had a couple big viral hits there.
My best performing TikTok on that account is still the one where it's like a zoom in of my forehead talking about how Lego sets cost like $600 now. Exactly. And it did like 90,000 views. And I was like, this is the easiest form of content to make.
Like my wife does TikTok. So a lot of her, like, craft, she does love really good crafting sort of thing. But she made one like one little meme one, making a joke about, crochet, like slave labor and all like that. And that got like 100,000 views. She's like, I don't know how I feel about this.
Yeah. It's always the ones where you're like, this isn't my best work, and then it gets literally like 100,000 views, and the ones that you put like several hours into, they don't pan out that way.
They cap at 400. Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like that's what she's doing. But no, we're doing great here. Hopefully, we don't cap out here, but we're going to make some bomb ass content here with some Yoda content. I'm excited. Like this is a really fun series. I'm glad to be back with you guys and getting back into the swing of major time production. So, no, things are going great.
Awesome. Jacob, how are you?
Pretty well. It's we had a nice, July 4th holiday since we last spoke all together. I was able to go visit my partner and have a nice long weekend. My job gave off Monday too, which was very clutch. Although awesome. I'm an intern, so they don't pay me for that time off, so that is not clutch. But other than that, it's been good. So
basically, they're just like, yeah, dude, you can leave like literally whenever. It's actually better for us.
Yeah. No, it's like, just go home. I'm like, I mean, that's great, but like my paycheck is going to be much worse.
Yeah.
And I got traveling expenses too. So
yeah. Hey, but Sheets had was $1.77 and 0.6 gas on July 4th. Which I found out after I made my like 8-hour drive and pulled into my hotel, and I'm like, all right, cool. And I got on TikTok and people were like, oh my God, $1.77 gas. I'm like, well, that would come in handy a little bit sooner, but
that'd have been great. That's way better than $17.76 gas. Like, sorry, it's 4th of July. We can't do anything about that.
America, baby.
Freedom. All right. Well, thank you so much for catching up, guys. But for those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome. We are the Cosmic Force. This is a Star Wars comics podcast, a part of the Youtini Podcast Network. We recently went on hiatus, but we're back and we're better than ever. Honestly, because I'm here and I wasn't here before. So I mean, come on, we're killing it now as it stands. But one thing I do want to mention, that if you like this show and you like the Youtini podcast as a whole, it is extremely easy for you to get involved and to support us in your own way. Now, you can do that at patreon.com/Youtini. For as little as $5 a month, you guys can contribute to all of the content that we make right here on this YouTube channel. That includes all the videos, all the live shows, the podcast, the Youtini Podcast Network, everything. And not to mention, you are going to get early access to all of our podcasts when they drop on podcast platforms. So go ahead and look into that. Again, that's that is patreon.com/Youtini. And so guys, I got to say that, I'm supposed to ask you guys what you've been reading first, but I'm extremely excited to talk about actually not what I've been reading, but what my wife's been reading. My wife is now on book 2 of Mistborn since the last time we talked.
Yes, because I feel like the last time we talked about this, you were having some difficulty getting her into it, you know?
Yeah. No, the first book starts off a little slow, and she's like, "What's going on here?" Not to mention, this is Brandon Sanderson, so he's got like 2 or 3 hard magic systems in there. It's like a textbook kind of to start off. Sometimes it feels like, but she's like invested in characters now, so this is fun.
Good.
I by the time the listeners get this, it will be over. But I know for Prime Day, a lot of his books are on sale in the box set format. And Parker, I'm assuming you own all of them already, but you know.
I don't own all of them, and that's why I have tried to avoid Amazon today. Trying not to spend a bunch of money. I'm also in the market for like home gym equipment, and now like today is a really good day for home gym equipment on Amazon. So like I need to stay off Amazon today. The day of recording, it's the 11th, so Prime days is today and tomorrow, and I'm avoiding Amazon like the plague right now.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
being
so work has helped, but
but you can save so much money by, you know, if you buy it, it's
money.
normally $1,000, but if you get it for 800, it's like you saved 200.
Yeah,
we all know
absolutely.
that's how math works.
100%. It's like getting $200 deposited straight into your bank account.
That's exactly what they want you to think. So, speaking of Mistborn Book 2, I'm actually just finished part 4 of that. Part 5, I think I have like 1 section left. I'm like, I got like 6 hours left of the audiobook. So I got to that point, and I'm like, you know, I'm going to put it down. I'm going to do a podcast episode or 2. Can have to rinse out my mouth, and then we'll dive right back into it.
I was gonna say you may have that done by the time you go to sleep tonight. If you start,
I'm
part
6
5,
hours. Physically not possible.
like I'm not the sort of crazy person who does it at like 2 times speed. I know there's a couple people on this team who are like, you know, 1.5 speed, 2 speed, that's great. I don't think I'm there yet. Like I enjoy my media and taking my time really slow with it. So like it kind of drives my wife insane because like we'll watch like an episode or 2 of like a really good series. I'm like, okay, let's put it down and do something else. And she's like, I want to keep watching. I'm like, but I want to do something else now. I gotta pace myself real slow.
For some audiobook readers that read either slower or clearer or a combination of both, I can get comfortably up to like 2.7.
Like I think it really does very, very much on like the reader, and I feel like it's something that you have to build up to. Like, you know, the first chapter you have to do it at 1 speed, and then like you can start slightly pumping it up just a little bit.
Yeah, it's like when you get in the shower, and when you get in, it's like midway between cold and hot, and then by the time you get out, it's like cranked all the way to the hot setting. That's how I feel like when I listen to audiobooks. I'm like in the gym, like bumping up every set. I'm like bumping up at 10%. So yeah, no, I definitely listen to books way too quickly, and it's not healthy. Sometimes my comprehension suffers, but I have such a long. It's like I'm stuck in that like have to be productive mindset, even when I'm doing like relaxing reading. It definitely it bites me in the butt sometimes.
I don't get me wrong, not to keep running this topic into the ground, but I'm definitely the sort of person who's like, oh well, I'm playing a game, but I don't have to be paying attention to the audio like when I'm playing Civilization. So I can absolutely have like an audiobook or a video going in the background. That's efficiency.
Audiobook, the Civ game, scrolling through TikTok.
All at the same time. You're min-maxing your free time is what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like I do. And sometimes when I'm not getting the most enjoyment out of it, I'm like, I'm only playing one thing at a time. I feel bad sometimes.
Yeah, no, it's pretty nuts. So we talked about what my wife is reading, but what I have been reading since the last time we recorded was I actually I saw Across the Spider-Verse a few weeks ago, and since then I've been dying to read more Spider-Man, and I don't think I brought it up in the re-debut episode of the show, but Spider-Man comics are like what I'm into. I've read a significant amount of them, and I hadn't read much Ultimate. What's the line? Oh, I forget. There's so many.
Ultimate Spider-Man?
I'm reading a new Miles run that I haven't read before.
Okay.
And it's really good. I really like it a lot. He's weaker, I think, in the comics.
I've heard a lot of that.
Yeah, his comics aren't as good generally as Peter Parker comics have been. I also have like weird taste. Apparently, nobody likes my favorite Spider-Man run, which is Superior Spider-Man, which is when Doc
Wait,
Ock
what are you talking
becomes
about? I thought that's
Spider-Man.
like one of the like highest rated recent Spider-Man runs.
It's highest. It's very highly rated, but if in conversation talking to people, they're like, "Oh,
like
that's your favorite." Like, I feel
okay,
like
that's fair.
within the community, it's probably pretty well liked because it's very well done. But like, if you talk to people who like Spider-Man and have read Spider-Man comics, they've never read Superior Spider-Man, and if they have, they're like, "I didn't like it. Peter Parker's not Peter Parker." But anyway, Jacob, how have you been doing, and what have you been reading in the last couple weeks?
Yeah, so I do want to like tail off with this Spider-Man conversation a little bit because I'm not like a huge Spider-Man fan. Well, like I like the stuff, I just haven't read much of it, which I should because I have Marvel Unlimited. But
Yeah.
what I really love is, I mean, obviously, I've read like a few miniseries. Like you cannot go wrong with Spider-Man Blue, like incredible story, and
It's so
then
good.
Renew Your Vows, Spider-Man. I love. Have you not read that?
No, I haven't.
Okay, you should do it because it's only so there's I think there's a 5 or 6 mini issue series that I think was like part of Secret War, like their more recent Secret Wars. And it's just like
Okay.
another they were in the Across the Spider-Verse, these characters. It's just like another world where Peter marries MJ and they have a kid. And so there's like a short like 5 or 6 issue mini series, and then it gets like a 20 something issue on.
So this is where Mayday comes in.
I think this is a different character because her name. This is a different Spider-Man kid. Her name's Annie Mae Parker.
Okay.
And I can't remember. I want to say she's because MJ Spinneret. I can't remember his daughter's name in this one. But yeah, no, it's very good. Highly recommend. It's pretty short. Like the miniseries is super good, and then like the first half of the longer run is good, and then they do like an age jump, and it not as great, but no, definitely recommend. But anyways, what I've actually been reading lately, I just finished the audiobook right beforehand, like literally 15 minutes before we got on the call. But I finished Last Shot, which is like the last of like the main like solo books I was reading. So I've like read Most Wanted, Tales from Vandor, and Last Shot back to back. Haven't done the novelization, but I've done like all the comic adaptations and other comic miniseries related to it. So really liked it. Has like some of the like, I mean, there's been a lot of body horror in Star Wars lately.
Yeah.
But this is like some of the most extreme body horror I think we've had in Star Wars. And it was pretty cool. But what I'm really excited to get into next, I went to actually an event last night and got the Archive Undying, which is Emma Miko Candon's new book. She wrote Ronin, which the adaptation of the Vision short, which I really loved. It's a very different Star Wars book because obviously it's like not in the main canon, but like beyond that, the writing style's very unique and was really drawing me in. So I was excited. This is her like debut original novel. So I got to do like visit like her book tour last night, so I got a nice signed copy.
That's so
and yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It's like about mechs, like these giant mech. She said she like was super inspired by Pacific Rim, but like there's these like giant mech AI creatures that when they die, they get bonded to a human, and then the human is piloting the mech, and some of them are bad, some of them are good. But it's a very unique, interesting sounding story. But another thing that was really exciting for me was about couple weeks ago they posted on Twitter, it's like, hey, I love my like book I wrote so much, I love the character I created, that I had one of my friends, I commissioned them to do art of the main character. So I ordered the print.
That's always awesome.
This, and of course I should have taken the jacket off, but this is Sunai, he's the main character, and I got the artist to sign it and Emma to sign it. So yeah,
that's really neat.
Cool. I'm like, it's a beautiful print. I'm very, but
looks very,
hopefully
Renaissance almost, you know.
It's very like, I don't know, the colors pop everywhere. It's gorgeous, beautiful. I mix those words up. But yeah, the problem is I do need to finish this in like a week, because there's another Star Wars book that is coming out, and that will be out by the time the listeners get to this episode. So Inquisitor Rise of the Red Blade coming very soon. So
yeah, I'm actually doing the review video for that that book. So any moment now, I could get a Slack message from the review team being like, "Hey, here we go," and I got to start filming. So it's got to happen quick.
That book is relevant to comics because remember, they first showed up in the Charles Soule run.
Yeah.
Iscat. I like have been to a few like random comic book shops, and I'm like, I'm just gonna look for, because she's like in literally like 3 panels across 2 issues and has, I think, 3 words of dialogue. Very much like an absolute nothing background character. Didn't have a name until recently. But I'm like, it'd be cool to have her first appearance. But like, even though I found many shops with like almost the entire run, always skip that issue. They don't have it. So
interesting.
It won't be worth anything. Like it's not like I'm gonna be like, oh, this is gonna be worth like a bunch of money because they're writing a book about this character. Like, no, as long if she's not in a TV show, it doesn't matter for value. But it's just kind of be cool to have.
I love that Charles Soule run. My brother actually got the entire run as a Christmas gift or something, and it was not too long before I went to Boston Fan Expo a year or two ago, and Charles Soule was there. And my plan was to see if my dad could find it wherever it was in his stuff, send it to me on the sly, and then have me sign it and then give it to him for his birthday, or have me get it signed by Charles Soule and then send it to him for his birthday. Didn't end up working out, but yeah, no, I love that run. That's like,
so good.
That was my like reintroduction into Star Wars comics after having not touched them for a long time. Oof, very good. Very good. But Caleb, what have you been up to lately?
As I mentioned, I'm doing a lot of Mistborn right now. Yes, Mistborn. I think after that, I'll swing back into Star Wars and do. I might do book 3 of the Thrawn trilogy right now.
Ooh.
I'm doing a really
which Thrawn trilogy? The Thrawn trilogy that starts with Thrawn and ends with Thrawn treason, or the Thrawn trilogy that like which one?
There's 3 trilogies you could be speaking of.
The first canon one. So Thrawn treason. But here's the thing: I did the first of that series, Thrawn. Then I did Thrawn Ascendancy book 1. Then I did Thrawn. Was it Betrayal?
Alliances.
Then I did the second book of the trilogy. So now I'll probably do the third book of the first trilogy, and then the third book of the last trilogy.
Okay, I liked it better when we could say Thrawn trilogy.
Exactly.
There's too many of them now.
There really is, but they need like a catchier, like pithy name. Like Canon 1 and Canon 2 don't really have it. Like Legends, like the Legend series, we get that, and then Canon 1, that's great, and then Thrawn Ascendancy, I guess that's how we can.
The Ascendancy works. The problem is if you try and say the Thrawn trilogy, most people are probably going to associate that with Legends.
Yeah,
even though it's not. Thrawn, like there is no like Thrawn label on it, but then also
he messed it up when he named the first canon Thrawn book Thrawn,
like no subtitle.
Also the first 3 canon books are not a technical trilogy. They were never planned as a trilogy. They were just like they wrote a book, and then they got to write another book, and then they got to write another book. But like they're not like a cohesive set.
Yeah,
like books 1 and 3 are more similar than books. 2 is kind of an outlier.
2 is definitely an outlier. 2 feels like a prequel or like. Sorry.
2 is a Clone Wars episode. Well, at least half of it is.
100%, and also like 2 almost feels like it could have been released as like Thrawn Ascendancy novella, or something like along those lines.
I haven't really pulled the rest of the Youtini crew here, but I'm going to say this here. I think I didn't really like Thrawn Ascendancy book 2. Like,
Ascendancy.
Yeah, the second book, I felt like there's
a lot of I can understand why you wouldn't, with like, because there's so much emphasis on like the Zodlak family and like the farmers.
Like there's a point where like there's that side story with like there's like a main character, and like they were trying to like navigate around like this annoying couple and their bird watching habits, and like this is the only time I've done it for anything. I was like, I'm just gonna skip a couple minutes forward, and they're still talking about birds. Oh my god!
If you were listening to the audiobook, you also had to listen to Yomi and Yoponek.
Yeah, it was the audiobook. That's the only way to do it.
Is it Yoponek?
Yeah, I know Yomi. Yeah.
Yomi's the Valley Girl, and then Yoponek's the
worst.
skater bro surfer dude.
If they were trying to have an emotional connection when she was killed off by the villain, I was like, it was the wrong emotional connection. I was like, I can't believe it took you 8 chapters to do this.
Yomi, bro.
Yomi, my love.
Well,
it was.
I have read Thrawn, and then I also read Alliances and Treason, and then I read Thrawn Ascendancy 1, and I've been telling myself you got to read Thrawn Ascendancy 2 and 3, and now I don't know.
If that's
right at the top of my TBR.
I think it's a good. I disagree with Caleb. I think it's a very enjoyable book. I do think it might be if you have a choice of audiobook versus reading physically, I might read physically just because there are it's not a big deal. There just are a few grating voices in that book.
Okay.
But
is it Mark Thompson?
Yeah. And he does a good job. The
he's always
great.
He's accomplishing what he's going out for very well. It's just gonna be annoying.
I would say it is a good book, but it is buried beneath a lot of what I feel was filler, for lack of a better term.
The family politics is not maybe around the family that you care about.
Exactly, and I feel like they drag.
Novels are more expensive than novellas.
Exactly, I feel like there's kind of oh crap, I need to add an extra 50 pages. So gotta fill it
Caleb,
out
since you have not read this to kind of eventually get us back on track to Yoda someday. You have not read the third book a lot. I think book 2 feeds into book 3 way more than you're going to anticipate.
Okay, perfect.
So it is worth your time.
I did not think that was the book 2 you were going to say you didn't like. I thought you were going to say you didn't like Thrawn Alliances.
I liked Alliances. I liked
Alliances, but you also read Thrawn Ascendancy 1 before you read Alliances. I read Thrawn Alliances, and I was like, what is happening right now, and why does this book exist? And then I read Thrawn Ascendancy 1, and I was like, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah. Because Caleb's probably one of the only people that got that crossover in the opposite direction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm a big fan, but not so much that I have to read it the moment it comes out. Though this is also slightly related to get us back on track, and it's a good thing we were kind of delayed a day in doing this. And I watched a lot of Rebels because I'm going my wife through Rebels right now. And there's we watched the episode last night where the 3 of them, Janus, Ezra, and Ahsoka and Kanan go to the Jedi Temple and Ezra meets Yoda one more time, and it's oh, this is actually really relevant to what we're seeing right now. So, I feel like we've not wasted, but we've kind of beat around the train here. So maybe we should actually start talking about our Yoda series here, right?
Yeah. So those of you attention when I first brought the episode in, we are talking about Yoda issues 7 through 9 on this podcast. Now, this is the conclusion of this is not the conclusion. This is the last of the 3 sub arcs inside the 10-issue miniseries. And just for context, the creative team here, it was written by Mark Guggenheim. The art was by Alessandra Miracolo, colored by Annalisa Leone, covered by Phil Noto, loved it, and letters by Joe Caramanga. Now, we talked about Yoda issues 1 through 3. We didn't come on the podcast and talk about issues 4 through 6. I also read those in conjunction with 7 through 9, and I gotta say, I loved this series as a whole. It was incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. It's been Parker touched on a little bit. It's been an interesting structure where we have 10-issue maxi series, 3 issues, and 3 issues make up arcs across different periods of Yoda's life. So we have a High Republic period written by Cavan Scott. We have a pre-Clone Wars period written by Jody Hauser, and then this one during the Clone Wars written by Mark Guggenheim. And each of these it's similar to the recent Obi-Wan miniseries where we got where it's 5 issues, and each one is a different lesson that Obi-Wan kind of learned throughout his life that got him to the Jedi he is today. And that's kind of what Yoda is. These 3 stories that but instead of him where Obi-Wan was learning a lot, it's Yoda kind of passing on what he knows and teaching. And there's similar lessons that you're going to recognize if you're familiar with Star Wars properties, size matters not, or all these other things. It's repeated themes that we're seeing throughout these, and then they're all going to culminate in a couple weeks with issue 10, which is going back to Cavan Scott, and it is Yoda reflecting on all these as he is on Dagobah. So at post A New Hope, probably also after Empire Strikes Back, but it's not really super clear. Just for vibes. I don't know why I'm saying that, but
I think they can make it clear that's before Episode 4, right before Obi-Wan passes.
No, Obi-Wan's dead.
No, Obi-Wan's mad dead.
Maybe I misread.
He's very
that.
Dead. But yeah, so we're gonna kind of get probably the culmination of all these things in the last issue. So it's been an interesting structure, I think, with all these like 3-issue arcs. It can feel a little setup heavy at the beginning of the arc. Like it's a lot of like, we're getting to the point, and then end of issue 2 into issue 3 is where the like real good stuff happens. But no, I think, I've enjoyed all of them. It might be a better reading experience to like be able to read it in these chunks rather than, read issue 1 and then wait a month. And I mean, but that's just comic books. So I can't really hold it against the series. But yeah, so that is Yoda, the miniseries. Caleb, do we want to talk about what happened in this arc?
Absolutely. So this series takes place, as we mentioned, during the Clone Wars, as Master Yoda himself picks up a tip about the next generation separatist weapon, codename Project Titan. Joining forces with a young Anakin Skywalker, Yoda infiltrates an enemy base, comes to blow with General Grievous, and learns the secret factory's location. Leading a charge and losing their entire clone contingent to a hidden ambush, the 2 Jedi plant detonators and collapse the underground facility, but not before one prototype Titan droid is activated and attacks Yoda and Anakin. The old master clambers inside the droid and disables it from within, but not before being stuck in space, where Anakin must trust in the light side of the Force to save this master. It's like, when I sum it up like that, it's like, wow, that was actually not a whole lot happened. But like when you read it like as like the 3 issues, there's a lot going on. And harken back to what we said before, I really like the 3-issue like setup. Like sometimes I feel like arcs can be a little long with a classic 5 or 6 issues, but I feel like 3 is a really good number to have like a kind of a setup, like a kind of an exposition, and then like kind of they don't have to rush to get like the ending done in like 4 panels. Like I feel like they have issue 3, technically issue 9 of this had like a good amount of like setup, but then it could take its time within the med bay and reinforcing the lessons and talking a little bit more. So they had the time to actually do a proper like arc here. So yeah, this was a lot of fun here. I think we mentioned either like in the beginning or at the pre-show, this one felt an awful lot like not what a Clone Wars episode from the cutting room floor, but definitely like an episode that was not written for the Clone Wars, but would have absolutely fit in.
Yeah, no, I like this structure, like we talked about. It almost, like, not to just straight up reference the last last episode we recorded, but it really does feel similar in a way to the Vader Black, White, and Red structure, where it's like we have the overarching story or the one story thread that's common through every episode, and then we have separate stories that we get to enjoy inside, obviously within the context of like Yoda flashing back to times in his life that made him who he was. One of my favorite things that you mentioned is how, while they are short, they are able to pack a pretty decent emotional punch inside those 3 issues. And I think that one of the coolest things about Yoda as a whole, especially Yoda within this series, is that all of his best moments are out of combat. And I think that a lot of people get maybe a little spoiled with Jedi in combat. Like, lightsabers are cool and everybody wants to see them fight, especially with Yoda. Like, I mean, think about it. One of the coolest moments in any of the movies was when Yoda finally picks up his lightsaber and we get to see him fight Count Dooku after 5 movies of never seeing him do something like that. So it was really cool. But the climactic moments in all 3 of these arcs, but specifically in this one, is always Yoda teaching and Yoda being that mentor figure, which I think is really important, because we know him in the movies and in all of the other media that he's been in as that like professor, that like the teacher and instructor for the entire Jedi Order. And I think that bringing that in the way that they did of actually being more important than fighting General Grievous. Like up until this point, I wasn't aware that Yoda fought General Grievous. I think that that's super important to bring to light, that like combat's not the only thing Jedi are here for. And Yoda's kind of always the vessel we get that in. But I think it was just really well executed here.
Excellent. And we in the previous bit, if you listener, if you haven't, you definitely should read this entire series. It's a lot of great Yoda content here. But in this like specific arc, we see Yoda as a much more of a warrior. He's leading battles and striking at enemies. Like, do we feel like this is like a big like betrayal of the character we've seen up to this point in the series and what we know kind of as Yoda as a person? Like, how do we feel about seeing Yoda as General Yoda here?
I think that's like, it's hard because this is definitely like more like, especially like comparing it to like the first arc where he's like, like, yo, I'm not trying to kill people. Like, what are you doing? Like, we're very much taking the nonviolent path towards things. I think this is part of it's probably the evolution of him, like now grappling with the galactic war, and who knows? There really is no help on like timeline where this takes place exactly.
It feels like it's early into Clone Wars because I feel like he's still teaching Anakin, and he seems like a little younger Anakin.
There's no reference to Ahsoka, so like maybe she's not around yet. Like I don't know, like, but he's he's been through it a little bit at this point. So like you're pressed into battle. I partially feel like this is almost a ship that sailed 20 years ago at this point, where like, if you were really a fan, like obviously there are two sides to this character. There is the kooky Empire Strikes Back wizard man, like or hermit man, and then there's the one that when president of battle will do crazy triple flips over Count Dooku and all this stuff. But like I think we've arrived a while ago to the point where like when it's needed, Yoda will take these actions, but not like it's always necessity. It is the part that weirded me out was, I think this also like goes more into like the differences between Yoda and Anakin's character, because like when we're on the first planet, or no, the second planet where they take the clone forces in, like they get ambushed. You have all these people, like all the droids shooting in on Yoda and Anakin and this clone battalion, and it kind of reminds me of like some of the early Kanan issues in a way. But anyways, or at some of the other like mini series like Mace Windu or stuff like that. Okay. Yoda just like, I'm gonna figure out what's happening. Peace out. Like, good luck, Anakin. And he like figures out like where they were and like helps dispatch them. But then he gets back and all of the clones are dead. And Anakin has like this emotional moment with like this Captain Caesar character who's very much a red shirt in this kind of scenario where it's like, oh yeah, here's the clone, and he's dead within the issue you meet him. But then like Yoda's like, all right, let's go. Like I think it's very much this theme that we've seen with Anakin specifically a lot of, he really cares about the people he's serving with, to where for other Jedi or other people in the Republic, the clones can be seen as more disposable. I thought that dynamic was a little bit more interesting to me than should Yoda be fighting or not.
Yeah, and I feel like that's a good thing, and it's I feel like there's like a mix of like, is Yoda like, I don't think Yoda ever thinks of life as disposable, but I feel like because he's such a good Jedi Master, like he knows that they are dead, they are now one with the Force. Like we do, like it's less like callousness and more just like extreme acceptance of the fact that they are dead, but that is something that as a Jedi they come in contact with a lot, so it's something that it's more comfortable about letting go and moving forward.
Yeah, that's a really Yoda feeling to express. Like I thought about that while I was reading it. It's like, okay, all these clones are dead, and of course Anakin has the emotional response and things like that, and Yoda was very Yoda about all of it. Like he was really in character as this like all-knowing guy, and he does remind himself in Anakin that they are they're one with the Force. This is how these type of things work. I actually didn't know whether Captain Caesar was a red shirt kind of character.
Yeah,
I didn't know if
don't
he
think
got
he's been around
introduced in
before.
this episode. Okay, yeah. I was gonna say because I'm not familiar with him, and I thought it was interesting. Like as soon as it wasn't like a Rex or anything, I was like, okay, I think this guy's gonna die. Especially because since the very like first panel of these 3 issues, like you see like we have no time. This is very quick. We're in mortal danger here. This is a big project that could bring an end to the Republic as we know it. So like, seems like there's going to be a lot of bloodshed in this in these issues.
I'm a little disappointed because I feel like they wasted the Caesar name. Like if you're gonna call him, it's spelled different than like Julius Caesar. But if you're gonna call him Caesar, like you need to have him get stabbed in the back. Like I'm sorry, that's the rules.
Maybe he was shot 21 times. I don't know.
It's like we as a franchise are not above this. We had an episode of the Clone Wars about the Zillo Beast, as that is definitely a Godzilla analog. If you're gonna call a clone Captain Caesar,
we had
let's go for the Julius Caesar references.
They had a villain called Savage Oppress.
Yeah.
A little on the nose.
Like a little bit there. So yeah, like
but you know what? I ate that shit up. So
it's great. It's great. Like, there's nothing quite like, when you reach into your pantry and you see a box of Ritz crackers and it says Ritz crackers on the label, like I know what I'm getting here. Like, like we're like, this is Maul's brother. He's bigger and more evil, and his name is Savage. I'm like, oh yeah, this is what I'm here for.
Well, yeah, I think that you could almost extend that to the whole series as a whole. When you see a comic series with Yoda on the front, you expect super teacher guy, you expect the occasional absolutely awesome combat sequence and things like that. But at the end of the day, I think that the punch is going to be packed in his mentorship and things like that.
Absolutely.
So I think that's cool.
Going off that, Parker, I think it is interesting. Like now that you bring that up, is like because even though like Yoda goes kind of crazy in with his like dueling in the end of Attack of the Clones and the end of Revenge of the Sith, for the majority of the time we see him, he is like still the teacher, the hermit, the old man. And so far of the 3 arcs we've gotten, he did not basically do anything physical until the end of this one. Like he took no physical action in the first arc, besides defending when he had to non-lethally. From what we can tell, he took no action really in the second one. And then, just now while we're getting into this big galactic civil war, is when he is really like finally pressed into doing something. And still, it's like, it's droids. Like you have that, like, that back pocket excuse of like, well, they're just, hey, the Jedi can still be good because they're just taking out droids. So
that is a question. It's like, do you feel like fighting Jedi with a giant army of droids was like the best or the worst decision? Like, it's great because like they can't be mind controlled or like physically, mentally controlled by the Jedi mind tricks, but or can't be sent, and it can't be sensed with their life, sense or whatever. But also like there's like so many Jedi like, I'll kill 1,000 droids, no problem. Killing one sentient, that's a problem. But droids,
You see, Caleb, here's the genius part is you fight them with a droid army, and then when you don't expect them, you fight them with a clone army. So, in the end, it all works out.
It does all work out. And some great machinations there.
I think that, honestly, I've thought about this a lot, actually, like why the droid army is the main antagonist of the prequel trilogy. And I think part of that is the lack of the ability to mind control them, because we've established that happens. And it's so strong that it's continuously like anytime there's a character that needs to manipulate a Jedi, they have to say out loud that I cannot be mind controlled. Like that is how strong that power itself is. So the fact that I have a whole army that's not susceptible to that, I think it's good. I also think it gives the perfect way to get rid of the droids once the Empire's formed, because they're just droids. You just turn them off. They're gone. So those are my 2 like big things that I could work for a while about.
It's really easy to market your show for kids when all the people that die are just robots.
Yeah, 100%, absolutely.
All right. Well, I have another quick question about Yoda here. Like, we've long established that Yoda's probably like the best teacher. He's the best like leader and wise person of the educator among the Jedi here. But do you think he's a great leader for doing so many things himself, or do you think he should be delegating more? Like, do you really think, like, is he a great leader because he is so wise, or because they elected him because has so much history? Or do you think, like, do you know, like, I don't know if anyone on the Jedi Council during the Clone Wars would be like necessarily a better leader of the Jedi, but do you feel like we've often seen where like someone who's really good at one aspect gets promoted, even though like management and like delegation might not be their strong suits, you know?
So I think that, and I kind of have a bunch of thoughts about this. I think that the reason we see Yoda in the capacity that we do in these 3 issues is supposed to mean something that is established outside of these particular comics. Every single time we see Yoda pick up a lightsaber and use it aggressively, it is against either a Sith Lord or a direct threat to 2 institutions, the Republic or the Jedi Order. Every single time we have ever seen him attack someone or defend himself with his lightsaber, it is in defense of those institutions. And I think that every time he goes to a planet to do something for the Clone Wars or gets involved personally in something, it adds a layer of like, holy cow, this is important. This is really a dire situation. I think that part of the choice to send himself to go handle this situation was to illustrate this Titan threat is a big time threat. This needs to be handled by Yoda and everybody's favorite character. Like that's the idea behind this.
I like what you said about like, you're good at one thing and you kind of just get promoted up until like you hit that ceiling. I think Yoda, and especially feel this after reading a lot of High Republic stories, Yoda is best when he is teaching people in a one-on-one scenario or a small group scenario. And I think he even likes that and prefers that, where you can see it in like the High Republic adventures for phase 1, where he's just like, I'm out. I'm going to go teach some kids. I'm
taking an RV full of teenagers and we're going to party. It's going to be great.
It's like, I'd rather do that than sit around the board meeting. Peace out. Or the same thing.
We see that in this very comic arc. Yeah, the first arc is like, I'm going to take like an extended vacation sort of thing in a tropical planet and like teach them like this one person a lesson.
I think if Yoda was left to his own devices outside the Order, that's what he would do.
100%.
And I think that's where he's best.
I think in issues 4 through 6, we see something a little similar where it's like, I now have a huge class of children and I can't be as personal as I would like to be. Hey, Master Dooku, how about you come in and help?
I think he's like such he's obviously such a strong and capable and compassionate Jedi that, just the fact that he's 800, 900 years old is he's eventually getting to like work his way up to that, like up the ladder, because literally everyone around him is going to die eventually just of old age, if nothing else.
Exactly.
And so like, I don't know.
Like he was like, they're like, hey Yoda, you're like the oldest person. Why don't you be in charge? And is he just like too nice or polite to say like, no, I don't think that? Or is there enough like pressure from people like Mace Windu, Ki-Adi-Mundi, people like, well, the Force is really strong in Yoda, so therefore he should be at the center of our sort of, position here.
I think there's external pressure for sure. I am like, again, going back to the High Republic, I do question, and I have issues with Yoda's like leadership as a whole of the Jedi Order, but like what really like gives me pause is in phase 1, you have 3 Grandmasters of 12 on the council, and it's like, that is the only time we have known multiple Grandmasters to exist. The High Republic in general. There are some earlier before that, but like after that, as far as we know, it's just Yoda. And I feel like I think it would make more sense to spread out that responsibility. And, especially it's very easy to become set in your ways when you've been around for 900 years. I think there are more Jedi that could have taken on that burden and maybe helped. Obviously they have to eventually lose and all die, but like in an alternate world where Order 66 doesn't happen, or could be avoided, I think there are better ways to have led the Order. But I could talk about this for 45 minutes, so I'm gonna cut myself there.
Exactly. It's a fascinating topic of like, like what did people have done differently here? So, but before we let's talk into one of the architects of Order 66, Anakin Skywalker himself. As we kind of mentioned, like it's nice seeing like Anakin and Yoda having like a really good like one-on-one connections here. Like we see Anakin like is well known for snarky and like kind of jokey side, and it's not usually like bounces it off of like Obi-Wan's like dry humor, and there's a lot of fun like seeing him like ping Obi-Wan with like a one-liner or a zinger and seeing him groan. But it's great because he'll like ping Yoda here several times, and Yoda just literally throws it back at him.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like the dynamic. I think that we have become very used to seeing Anakin bounce off that brick wall that's Obi-Wan, and the cool context that you get to see of like, I think everybody also gets their fill of seeing like the snarky back and forth whenever you watch Clone Wars and see Anakin interact with Ahsoka. And I think that she has such an incredible pull as a character, partly for that reason, because you get to see those personalities go up against, not against each other, but like bounce off of each other.
Mm-hmm.
But the encouragement that Yoda gives and like the push and pull relationship that you see in these 3 issues is really cool. Like even in the most dire of circumstances, Yoda's like freezing to death in space, they're still trading blows, and it's cool. It's like, hey, Anakin, you have this personality that's not necessarily a bad thing. Go ahead and let it breathe a little bit, kid. And I like that dynamic a lot.
Mm-hmm. And like you could definitely have seen like if Yoda had spent more time training Anakin like specifically, like maybe it would have turned out differently, or maybe Anakin would have just gotten an even bigger ego of like, I was trained by Yoda, now I can absolutely do no wrong, Mr. Palpatine. What are you trying to tell me? That makes sense.
I feel like Yoda could have, like Anakin, like learned the lesson that he was imparted in this one, and like I think walked away for the better. I feel like over a longer period of time, he would have become so sick of Yoda's shit.
Yeah, probably.
Like, just talk normal. Like when you're making fun of me, you can talk in a normal structure.
Or just like imagine in the heat of a battle, and like Yoda's like, okay, well, like I could like solo this, but I want to make it a learning experience. And Anakin's just like fighting for his life, and it's like, please just help me.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's definitely like sometimes throw it to the fire type style for Yoda, and I feel like Anakin is very good at taking the reins, but if they're forced into his hand, he doesn't respond very well all the time. That would have been pretty hard to deal with. That's pretty funny. Absolutely. Now I did enjoy one particular aspect of this, and we talked about, Yoda being the ultimate teacher and things like that, and how even during, like Jacob, you just referenced, I don't think it's that out of the question that even during the heat of a battle, Yoda could turn it into a learning opportunity, because we actually see in these issues right here, Yoda, like I said, is freezing to death. He's trapped in outer space. He's desperate and needs Anakin to help him, and he still manages to turn it into a teaching moment for Anakin, and trains literally in real time is training Anakin how specifically to breathe and reach out to the light side of the Force. And I don't know, not that Anakin was never told, hey, the dark side's bad and the light side's good, but I think sometimes he could have benefited from a little more pointed direction during his training. And the fact that Yoda actually is like, reach out to the light side, do this, do that, and we'll be okay. I think that was a really cool dynamic that brought itself forward in these issues.
Yeah, it's interesting to phrasing, because like any other time we see the Jedi talking about the Force, like just reach out to the Force, just fill out and expand and get to the Force, and avoid the dark side. But like it's kind of like the base assumption is the Force is good, but there's a bad side over here to not touch. But it seems like Yoda is very specifically saying light side. Do you think that's anything that we need to read too deeply into it, or is he like specifically saying, hey, just reach out to the Force, feel the light, feel the goodness of it?
I didn't think about that. Is he seeing something we're not yet? I wish we knew where in the timeline this was, because like watching Clone Wars, there's this, everybody always talks about it. There's this distinct like curve you see Anakin take. And I wish I knew what point in the Clone Wars this was, because that seems like something Yoda feels is very important to clarify.
I think I'm with Caleb that it feels earlier, because like there's like no mention really of Ahsoka. Anakin's it's at least not season 7, because Anakin has short hair still. And I feel like if you were getting later into the timeline, although Anakin is upset by Captain Caesar dying, he would have been like way more violent if we were getting into the back half of the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
So maybe just like his first like couple of months of the Clone Wars, and that's like Caesar was his first like command.
Yeah, it's possible.
Who knows?
I mean, they even said like when they're like dispatching these clones, they're saying it's like a newly formed like regiment or whatever. So like, you know, when I first read it, I was like, oh, it's just, you know, they got a new batch out, whatever. But, you know, maybe it is like, hey, we are in the process of forming these early like battle groups of clones, and this is, you know, just one of the new ones. Although I don't remember seeing Phase 1 helmets, but I also didn't, I guess, look for that.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to see. I wonder if I.
Let me pull up. It's been I'm not such a one that I can tell it off. It's
Phase 2 helmets.
The Caesar panel. I'm gonna go ahead and throw it up on the stream for our video watchers. But this is the panel with Anakin and Caesar. Doesn't have a Phase 1, and that's really the only main distinction, right? The helmets for Phase 1 and Phase 2.
Yeah, that's it. And it looks like they do have Phase 2 helmets. So
okay,
interesting.
So that puts this at least a couple years after the start of the war.
Maybe, yeah.
I should know when Phase 2 happens, but I don't.
I was about to say, we'll let the timeline worry about that, because we also have General Grievous. He also makes a single issue appearance here.
Absolutely.
And he does the meme. He does the thing like Yoda jumps down. It's like, aha, I was trained in your Jedi arts by Count Dooku. But I feel like this time it actually has like a little bit more of a sting, because, you know, Yoda trained Dooku specifically, and then, and then trained Grievous. So kind of like, you know, I'm kind of turning your own instructions against you, sort of
your
thing.
Grandson.
Yeah.
Like, do you think he was doing that to brag? Do you think he was like a calculated, I'm going to like use this as a verbal bar to get under like Yoda's skin here?
Oh, I think it's definitely like a mental weapon. Like, you know, Grievous is very like prides himself in a warrior. I think it was with purpose. There was two moments that I really enjoyed from it. One was him like Yoda at the end stealing the lightsaber, being like, you know, just like the like, you know, I have another from like, you know, the whole like Grievous collection meme. It's like, nope, -1. You're coming out of this battle less than you thought. The other thing I loved is they still kept up the you know, ongoing gag of the fact that Anakin and Grievous can never meet before Revenge of the Sith. They're on the same planet, and Anakin's
I actually remember
outside.
thinking that while reading. I was like, well, I know that even though the cover has Grievous and these issues have Anakin, they're not going to see each other. So
that breaks the timeline there. But it also kind of shows to your first point there, Jacob, that, you know, how much Yoda does care about the Order. Like, you know, like he saw like a lightsaber of a dead Jedi, and he made sure that he could try to take that home with him.
Just going back in the Kyber Arch.
Exactly. Like, you know, like this is a weapon of a Jedi, and like Yoda's not like probably like the least prideful person, but like you can tell like, you know, this is important to him. Like, you know, I'm not going to let you get away with using this tool for evil, essentially. So it was fun seeing Grievous kind of getting like, you know, a couple blows against Yoda there, and seeing a little like recap of like, yes, Yoda is a really good lightsaber duelist here. But, you know, not even he can stop everything. Like it was now we alluded to this before, but speaking of Grievous and his battle droids, there's a very rare, it wasn't in the long term, but a very rare droid win, a big droid like ambush killed off a ton of like clones an entire platoon like all at once in that ambush. It's like, wow, I didn't realize these droids could hit anything now.
How can you forget the, you know, goated Jedi General I'm a Gundai, who sacrificed himself along with his clone battalion in order to save, I think, people on Ryloth. Yeah, I think that had to deal with like the little girl who gets like with the blue Twi'lek that gets lost.
I think.
I don't know. I think, but yes.
She just showed up in Rebels, so I remembered her. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a very important character. But no, like, you know, like it's rare to see like the battle droids actually like, you know, have an actual like, you know, military like victory over clones and like completely decimate or wipe out an entire system.
For 100%. Like, I think that the clone plus Jedi battle unit feels a lot like the Battle of Thermopylae, like 300. And we could have a quarter of the numbers. We're still gonna pull it out. It is not very often that we see any form of battle droid just completely rout like these superiorly trained clones who have the benefit of human choice and things like that. Like, it's pretty impressive that not only did we get to see like an actual military conflict between two large-ish factions within the context of the Clone Wars inside of a 3-issue series, but like that they chose to go in the direction of, okay, we're going to put Anakin, I think specifically Anakin and Yoda, in a place where Anakin's going to be wrestling with emotions because he doesn't lose his troops very often. I think that was really important to why that happened.
It's super interesting to see what happens, like, how well the droid army can succeed when it's, engaging in guerrilla warfare rather than just like we're just getting the block of droids like the Battle of Naboo and we're just gonna march them in one direction.
Listen, Napoleon had it right when it came to warfare. Like, single columns, straight in, rush, but they didn't have bayonets. That would have been the kicker if they had bayonets.
Just fix bayonets, man. They should have fixed bayonets.
Speaking of bayonets, like we kind of like they followed through. They had the big tease. Like, we got this huge, like, Titan droids. Like, they're going to be so bad that they blow up the factory, which, by the way, I love the factory to design. I liked how, they essentially pulled back in and like went back to the Attack of the Clones and just redid that. Like, it didn't feel cheap at all. It felt like it felt great seeing that design again. I'm like, oh yeah, that is perfect. I love seeing that big red smoky, like, industrial line with all the rust colors and the arms coming down. It was amazing to see that again. I love that. But we did actually see the big, at least one of those prototypes come out in like a huge massive Gundam fight. And how do we feel about that design there, that design of the killer droid here?
I'll be honest, it didn't do like a whole lot for me. It's just like another humanoid droid. I think that's like it just with like the medium of comic books, it's like hard, like when they're like it's like 4 times bigger than a battle droid. Like, I don't think the scale ever really hits you to be honest with the framing that they choose. So
it's almost like forced perspective, it seems like.
Like you I feel like you need like a wide shot to see like the droid towering over them, whereas like this is like, I mean, it could be huge or it just could be behind them and the camera's looking up. It's hard to tell. So like it didn't like do a whole lot for me, to be honest. Like, it's still like, it looks cool, but like you could replace this, like in this shot, you could replace it with a B2 super battle droid and I would like the effect would not change on me.
No, I agree. I think part of the badassery or whatever that we're supposed to be feeling from this is supposed to, or at least for me, it was a little rooted in the fact that like the deadliness of battle droids is established early in the route of the clones, and so like these guys are a threat and now they're stronger, kind of thing. So that context did a lot for me, but like I think like you said, that this kind of looks like a forced perspective almost kind of thing, where it's like, oh, this is basically the size of, this could be the size of Grievous for all I know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like it's a fun design, but it definitely felt like we didn't have enough either like context, or like we need to see it. That's terrible sounds. We need to see it like stomp on a few clones to really get the idea of what it was doing. So it was fun, but it's also, there's always the question is like, why don't they make bigger battle droids? Like they said, like they blew up the foundry, so they can be able to take them years to make anything that big. But it's always like, well, why can't you just like get a couple of B1 battle droids on gymnastics teams and like have them like standing on each other's shoulders here.
The silly thing is, I think like, I guess kind of like going forward a little bit is like when spoilers, they destroyed the factory and they're like, Yoda's like, we set them back several years, which like it gives me the vibes of Stuxnet in the Iran nuclear program. We destroyed it, so they can't do anything for years. It's gonna take them so long to build this back up. But like, it's the Trade Federation. Like, I understand this is a big factory, but like they can
the
just
whole
build another
skill there,
factory.
and that's like probably the longest part of
It's like
building
like they have like a money faucet and a ton of resources. I think they can probably build another factory, but like, again, if this is early in the war, they might be like naive to like the realities of what's going on. So
real quick on the note of the factory, Caleb, you brought this up a little bit ago. The design itself is like super cool. If you were to like, if this was created by like an AI prompt, an AI art prompt, or if you were to give this to a college art class and just give them a prompt, it would be like, do Attack of the Clones droid factory, but like way bigger and you can't see the bottom. And like, if that was the prompt, it was executed incredibly well. Cause this shot right here that's on screen is I love it. This is one of my favorite panels in
I
all
think
9
what's
issues.
super cool about it is like, Anakin is astonished by the scale of the place. And it's like, yeah, he saw the one on Geonosis and he like, for him to be like, what, holy cow. Like, it's big.
Yoda doesn't have dialogue here, but I do love the idea in my head canon that he's just like, yeah. He's like, big.
Size matters not.
Hey, holy cow, that's like 100% why it's that big.
Exactly. Doesn't matter. All right. So we got one more thing we want to bring up is this is kind of this is episode or issue 3 of the 3rd arc, and the last issue would kind of be tying together like this like overarching story of him talking to Obi-Wan's ghost here. And I quickly pulled up the issue and I see what you mean. Like, yes, Obi-Wan is dead. For some reason, when I first read it, I saw it. I thought it said, Yoda says, I saw your death. I saw. I thought it meant like, oh, I saw that happening in the future. Like that's something that's going to be happening. But
okay,
yeah,
that makes a lot.
Obi-Wan is definitely dead at this point. So, and he talks about how we can't save the galaxy anymore. Like, I failed to stop Palpatine the first time. Like, I can't beat him. Like, do you feel like Yoda's being like a little melancholic, a little sad, or do you feel like Yoda just knows that there's no way for him to beat the Emperor, like no matter how hard he tries? Like we get into some like weird Dragon Ball level, like power level scaling, like Yoda's here, but the Emperor's here, and therefore they can never touch. Or
I'm gonna take it in a different direction of like maybe it's not necessarily like like the pure like it can Superman beat Goku kind of conversation, but like in Yoda's mind, like maybe he rightly thinks you cannot win this duel one-on-one. It would probably be close, but like the Emperor also has a empire of resources at his will to at least slow him down quite a bit.
And he fights dirty.
And he does fight dirty. And he uses the dark side. But like from Yoda's mind, he is, since we've established he is like such a good teacher among like beyond anything else. I think for him, it's just like I would rather bide my time and try and pass on what I know to some more people. Even if it's not like training a specific, like a Jedi specifically, but just like training people in the ways of the Force and building them up. So maybe one day someone else can do this job. Whereas if I just like try and solo it and die, then there is no hope ever. And like there's the likelihood of someone independently being able to rise up is so slim.
Exactly.
Yeah,
like
I agree. I think. I don't know. I'm going to take also again in another kind of direction, but I don't know if this is necessarily like that Superman beats Goku thing. I think it's almost like I think Yoda believes he could beat him maybe in some sense, but I think he's also acknowledging maybe it's not written out for us plain, but like some sort of mental health block that he's got with the whole situation. Like he failed royally, like very badly, and kind of the Republic died because of it, probably the way that he's looking at it, or it definitely could be the way he's looking at it. And I don't know that he doesn't think that he has the power or that the Force wouldn't guide him how to do it. I think it's more of like I am a deficient vessel of this duty, and I don't know if I'd be able to perform at that level because the weight of my past failure is really affecting me.
like maybe he recognized, like, I not only did I lose in the Senate chamber, when I confronted him physically, but Yoda, probably thinks I lost this war, this battle 5 years ago, 10 years ago, when I said, oh yeah, we'll join the Clone Wars, like we'll put ourselves in that position. Like, I lost this years and years ago when I allowed this corruption to seep into the world around me here. It's interesting because harken back onto it, like just yesterday I saw the episode where Ezra's talking with, and Rebels, where Ezra's talking to Yoda, and Ezra asks him, well, how can I defeat the Emperor, how are Vader, and how can I defeat his Inquisitors? And Yoda's just kind of like, that's not really what a Jedi should be doing, is how can I kill my enemies? Like, like the only like hint he gives him is go to Malachor, and there we see like the big like climactic battle between like the Sith and the Jedi and the ruins of that. I think maybe what he's trying to teach is like, there's like, we've been fighting physically against the Sith for thousands of years. Maybe we need to do something else.
Yeah. I want to, so looking ahead a little bit, the preview for the issue 10 at the end of this issue talks about Yoda going into the cave on Dagobah to face his fears, and like, we know he's been speaking with the ghost of Obi-Wan, but as you see on the screen, we also have the ghost of Count Dooku. And Dooku played a big role in the second arc of the series. It'll be interesting to see if, Yoda has to reflect on the failures. Like, again, since this has been focusing so much on his teachings, he might have to face the fear of the failings of his teachings, of trying to raise a Padawan that fell to the dark side. I do want to give a shout out to another story in Star Wars that this is from Empire Strikes Back from a certain point of view. The story, flip to it, Virgins by Tracy Deonn. It is a story written from the perspective of the cave, and the cave has been around for ever. Is like a force, a Virgins on the Force, and the cave over time like tells the experience of like, it's very like, it doesn't have like much of a consciousness, and as more people come to Dagobah over the millennia and interact with it and experience it, the cave starts to build knowledge and sentience, and eventually it encounters Yoda. And over this time, it's like, I'm not dark side, but I guess like I'm kind of leaning that door. Like I guess my inclination is what more people might call dark side. And Yoda is the only person that ever visits more than once. And it's like, whoa, what's going on? Like, I've been here forever. And I've been here as long as time. And, no one's ever come back because of like what I've shown them. And Yoda continues to go back. And that's not because like Yoda's trying to defeat the cave, or Yoda's trying to, what we find out and what the cave realizes and comes to this recognition is that Yoda is making sure to like face his fears, and like this is his way of staying aligned with the light. He can't succumb to fear if he continues to go back to the cave and face them and walk out unafraid. So I thought it's a very cool and interesting story. I recommend you read it, and I'm curious, like from a certain point of view, it's not like this is the strictest, most canon thing ever. But I am curious to like see if any of these themes kind of weave themselves through with that final issue.
Yeah, no, I did. I haven't read it from a certain point of view, Empire Strikes Back. Now I really want to. Like that, I didn't realize, I'm not gonna lie, I don't know much about any of those books. Or either of those books. And now hearing that and the unique perspective it provides, I might just start that tonight. But what I was gonna get into, sorry, go ahead.
I was like, I will like very quickly be like, they are both fun books. They are anthologies, so they are hit or miss. I very much recommend, do not try and just read the thing. Like, they are great audiobooks because they're all different narrators. Every story has a different narrator. And like you have like some people outside the traditional, like Mark Tom, like John Hamm, the A-list actor, is Boba Fett. Like there's some very interesting choices.
I thought it was Neil Patrick Harris.
No, but I would definitely recommend audiobook if you can, and just like take your time. It's the kind of thing where like it's fun to read it, like do a story or two a night, and then take it off in bite sizes, because some of them are amazing, some that are not my favorite. So there are some cool stories for sure, and some lots of very unique stories. If you end up liking the cave story, there's a space slug story that is also excellent and I think gives off similar emotions. So
yeah, that's
cool.
It. Neil Patrick Harris did a different one, but they got some pretty wild voice actors there.
I'm definitely going to check those out. But to kind of circle back to like moving into issue 10, which have we gotten confirmed that it's Cavan Scott yet? It's confirmed, right?
Yeah, no, yeah,
So Cavan Scott, who wrote the first 3 issues of the Yoda series, is coming back to tie it all together in issue 10. Now, on the cover for issue 10, which we have on screen, we see Dooku's Force Ghost. Is this the first time we've seen a Sith that has a Force Ghost?
Depends on how you define ghost, because like you have things like Darth Bane had like some sort of spirit left behind. Same thing with the Grand Inquisitor.
Technically, Darth Bane isn't quite canon yet, right?
He was in
Clone Wars episode.
It was Clone Wars episode.
Okay.
Anakin Skywalker had a ghost,
but he's redeemed.
He was redeemed for that. So that's
I think
caveat.
If this is, I don't imagine it is a true Force ghost. If it was like straight up Count Dooku as a Force ghost, yes, that would probably be pretty unprecedented. But I think it's more likely that this is like a conjuring of the cave itself.
Also, it's a comics cover. They lie all the time.
That is true.
That's very true. That's
exactly.
Very true.
And
I forgot there was one very recently that stuck out to me. Oh yeah, it was on Sonostaros. There's the one issue where her and excuse me because I'm terrible with names, but it's her and the green lizard woman.
Diva Lompop.
Diva Lompop.
Yeah. Yes, Diva Lompop. They are locked in a combat scene on the cover of that issue that never actually comes to fruition.
No, they fight each other. Just kind of like
they're not fighting each other on the cover. They're fighting something as a team.
It wasn't in that issue, especially not in that issue. Now, one thing I do want to quickly point out is we talked about Dooku is might be Yoda's one of his great failures because he directly taught he was Yoda's direct sort of thing. And I stopped thinking Yoda teaches most of the younglings, but there's really only one other person that we've known who was directly taught by Yoda, and that was our favorite thing, Cantum Psi from the High Republic. They were also directly trained by Yoda, they were Yoda, his direct Padawan. So it is kind of interesting to think I wonder how many direct Padawans Yoda has trained up. And it's fun to think of his last one that he did was the one that fell to the dark side so completely. Do you think he got complacent at that side? Dooku's a fascinating character, but that's a whole nother can of worms to open up some other time.
Yeah, I think there's this. I wonder if there's a support group that Jedi Masters go to if their Padawan falls to the dark side. Maybe not directly to be a Sith Lord, but or even leaves the Jedi Order. I wonder if they get together and they're yeah, dude, I couldn't have done anything. Because that's definitely what they would say to each other.
The Masters of the Lost 20 support group.
Yeah, 100%. That would be awesome. It's just they all go stand next to the bust in the library. Yeah. That is their representative. That would be really funny.
I made this. You made this.
Every time a new one happens, they'll cast the news what was the number to the guy who makes the busts? Does anybody have that number saved in Microsoft Teams or something?
Oh,
that would be awesome.
Exactly.
But yeah, no. So these issues as a whole, they were incredible. They were really good. I'm really excited for issue 10, especially because I'm just a huge Cavan stan. Not friend of this show, but friend of Youtini as a whole. Cavan Scott, just an absolutely wonderful guy and an amazing writer, and can't wait to see what he's got up his sleeve for issue 10. I'm interested to see whether or not Dooku is a real Force ghost, and if that is the case, if anybody thought about well, this was being edited and was is this the first time we've ever had a legit Sith be a Force ghost? Anyway, but yeah, no. So I guess I kind of want to open it up real quick, guys. Do you guys have anything else that you wanted to bring up about Yoda issue 7 through 9, or even anything in issues 1 through 6?
Yeah. So there's a few small Easter eggy type things that I really liked, or small moments. We start off on the Ring of Kafrene in the first issue, which if you don't remember, It's where Cassian Andor opens on Rogue One. He shoots the dude in the back and to get the information and climbs out. It is where we also have been already, like, they told us like way back when that this is where Andor season 2 will end. Like, it'll go full circle. So
Nice.
it's cool to see, us outside the Tony Gilroy universe with Yoda there. And then when he leaves, I missed this the first time I read it. He because there's like a dude in a trench coat and you can't see them, like, getting information from a spy. They don't shoot them. They actually give them money and leave. But then when you leave, you see Yoda. He tosses the trench coat off, and it's Yoda standing on top of an R unit. Like, it's like the classic, like the classic kids stacked in a trench coat, but it's Yoda on top of an astromech droid, and it's like the funniest thing I've ever seen.
It's the little rascals-esque. It's so good.
Yeah, for sure. And like, I love that this, again, I think this felt like this nailed the Clone Wars vibes of like making a Clone Wars TV show arc more than more than most other comic books and books I've read. And then one final thing, I want to bring this all the way back to like the beginning of our episode when we were talking about Thrawn alliances randomly. Mm-hmm. I think there's quite the parallel with this and Thrawn alliances, because like in Thrawn alliances with the Clone War story, you have Anakin and Thrawn and also Padme going to this secret separatist like R&D facility. They're going to build this new cortosis weave droid armor that would basically make lightsabers useless. And when then Anakin gets to blow it up, although in that case he literally commits like insane war crimes and destroys an entire planet that is being enslaved by it's wild. It's like actually like one of the most unhinged things Anakin's ever done.
Padme's there too when he does
it. There's like slack jawed, like, what did you just do? We told you not to do this. And he's like, he's himbo, and he's like, oh, oops, did not think about that. And then in this one you get Anakin and Yoda going to the secret separatist R&D facility. Not quite the catastrophic ending. They get to blow it up and they get to take out the droid without completely like devastating an entire planet. But I mean, they kind of felt similar. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, those were the kind of like the fun things I enjoyed outside like the big obvious stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Caleb, did you have anything else that you wanted to bring up?
No, I was about to say, I think we already covered pretty much everything here. Again, I wanted to make sure we talked about the Ring of Caffeine as well, and I thought that was amazing. I'm glad his Yoda's informant got out a lot better than Andor's informant. Significantly less shooting in the back there. So, no, it was great. I think this arc was really well done. I'm ready to see what issue 10 has, but also what other Star Wars is putting out ways. Anything you want to bring up, Parker?
Yeah, so Jacob already mentioned the Clone Wars vibes, and I'm going to kind of steal something that Caleb had mentioned before about, I thought it was really interesting that the finality, like the final thought that Yoda has about the galaxy as a whole and the Jedi's role within it at the end of this is that the Jedi should not be involved in the goings on of the galaxy, which I think might be like more of a self-reflection thing about how, like, Jacob, you had, open criticism earlier about the way that he's run the Jedi Order, and he understands like he is the Grand Master and the Jedi's role in the galaxy is largely because of what he has allowed to happen or even like push the Jedi towards this role. So I thought that was pretty an interesting vibe to give off, at the very end. We talked a lot about Yoda being the elder teacher type, and I just, I don't want to say beat that dead horse anymore, but like I loved his role of just like always being the teacher and always being that very knowledgeable Jedi Master. But the last thing that I had is that this is actually from the middle 3 issues of these 9. Seeing Count Dooku be so openly cynical and like, I don't know the right word, but he definitely wasn't the most compliant Jedi, and it was so openly put in his story in those 3 issues that I thought was really interesting to see, because up to this point, like, unless you've read, listened to Dooku Jedi Lost or anything like that, it's very recent that we get to see behind that curtain, and anytime we get to, it's pretty intriguing for me. So, but that's kind of really all I had. One question I did have for you guys is, what do we have to look forward to coming into our next recording?
Yeah. So looking back a little bit, and also, anyways, the things that we've had over this past window, we had Star Wars 36, Vader 36, Bounty Hunters 36. It's nice when they line up. They don't always. Star Wars 36 felt a lot. I won't go too much into it. It had some Shadow of the Empires type moments to it, which was interesting. Okay. Vader is continuing on his adventure with Dr. Aphra. And then Bounty Hunters is R.I.P. Valence's mind. It's been a struggle for Valence Nation out there. I'm sorry for the emotional toll that Ethan's been putting you through. But coming up in the next couple of weeks for things we might talk about for the next episode, we have Dr. Aphra 34, not lining up, unfortunately, number-wise. It was fine. Rebellion number 1, the one-shot from the Return of the Jedi one-shot set. The finale of Vader Black, White, and Red number 4, and then Mando season 2 episode number 2. So I would probably my gut thought, and we will tell everyone ahead of time on Discord and Twitter, my gut thought is probably either capping off Vader, since we've already talked about it, or Rebellion, if that's fun, or maybe both. We'll chat and we'll get back to you on what our thoughts are. Also, if we read one and we don't like it, then maybe we don't talk about it. So, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And make sure you're following us on Twitter, because if you're not following us on Twitter, you may not know what the episode's going to be about before we get there. And if you want to read ahead and be included more so in the conversation, there might be something that might interest you. But everybody, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. If you're doing so on YouTube, that's going to do it for us this week. This week's episode of the Cosmic Force comes to a close. Do not forget to like and subscribe right here on the YouTube channel, and where you're going to be able to watch the show, the visual version, every other Wednesday when we drop a new one. We also encourage you to subscribe to the audio version wherever you like to get your podcast, whether that's Pocket Cast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, all those different things. You definitely can subscribe and rate us on all of them if you want to be the best fan ever. And we really hope that you follow along on the audio versions as well. You can also follow us on Twitter. Like I mentioned before, you can follow the show, that is at Cosmic Force Show, to stay informed about Star Wars comics happenings. Or you can also follow all of us individually. I'm at Parker Kirk _. Caleb is at Caleb Laminack, and Jacob is at Jacob Bosch, Boushh. For reviews, articles, and news for the rest of the wide galaxy of Star Wars, make sure you visit us at youtini.com. And we encourage you once again to support us by joining our Patreon. That's patreon.com/youtini. And you can start receiving exclusive perks, such as seeing this episode a day early in your podcast feed. And of course, a special thank you to Brian Dooley, Earl Q, Carl Sander, Zach W, Michael Fry, and Raymond Bazinski on our Jedi High Council, and James T, Ashley Ingalls, Colton Fife, and Chris Carrizzo on our Alliance High Command for their amazing support. And lastly, do not forget to join our exclusive Youtini Discord channel. You can go ahead and join that at youtini.com/Discord. There is a Cosmic Force channel in there if you'd like to jump in and talk to any of us about the goings on the show or anything that we covered in this last episode. But once again, thank you so much, Caleb. Thank you so much, Jacob, for hosting with me yet again this week. We will see you guys in 2 weeks. Special thanks to the listeners for all the support. And of course, may the Force be with you. Thanks, guys. We appreciate it.